Don't judge me, yes me, the young black woman you see, whose life has been held in captivity, both carnally and spiritually. I, yes I, have had to fight all my life just to be free, free to be me. Imagine having your mother sell you for 20 TT so she could be free. Now I am held without my consent, dying to be free.
The Caribbean has the second highest HIV prevalence in the world. Although much progress has been made in the region, critical groups are being left behind. The Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition is a regional coalition of community leaders and NGOs at the forefront of efforts to address the needs of populations that are especially vulnerable to HIV and AIDS. These groups face a high level of stigma, discrimination, and legal barriers, which increase their vulnerability and affect their access to needed services.
What we are founded on is the premise that nobody gets HIV because their DNA is deficient. Nobody is more vulnerable to HIV because they have some kink in their body that becomes... They are vulnerable because of the conditions in which their society operates.
With the help of funding from the Robert Carr Civil Society Network Fund, CVC and the UWI Rights Advocacy Project are partnering to address these issues. Among the main CVC mandates is the promotion of pro bono lawyering, or lawyering for the public good.
We want to promote a proactive role for lawyers. We see lawyers as partly agents of change, and we want to see ways in which lawyers can contribute to advancing human rights and social justice through strategic litigation, community lawyering, and advocacy, which are the three main pillars.
Through social justice work, we become productive citizens. We become part of the development of our individual countries. I find that you can use your profession to make social changes in your country through cases, establishing precedents, advocating for various issues.
Especially in the Caribbean, where there's so much poverty, I think, and people are over-policed in a sense. There's such a tremendous need for pro bono services. Lawyers can, I think, contribute a lot by simply assisting these marginalized or people otherwise unable to access legal services.
For persons living with HIV and AIDS, the challenges are encountered on a daily basis.
Working with people living with HIV, we have had numerous reports and complaints about I was fired because I went for a medical, and when my boss realized, well, I have HIV, I get demoted and eventually I got kicked out of my job. What we see is that there's a lot of education out there, there's a lot of knowledge on HIV. There's actually a workplace policy that is not being enforced. Once you're fired, they don't say HIV, they might tell you medically unfit. They're very technical with it. There's no form of recourse or redress for that whatsoever. So people with HIV have a hard time keeping their status secret. And that of itself is a stress, and stress with HIV doesn't go well.
In the Caribbean, persons living with HIV are generally very highly discriminated. A lot of the work that we do centers around, in St. Lucia in particular, but also at the level of the Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition, providing or increasing the access to services. Access to services, particularly health services and services related to justice, so redress where acts of discrimination are committed against them.
In the absence of a supportive environment, some key populations remain vulnerable.
As it stands immediately, most of the time, any kind of assistance at all legally comes out from our pocket. Any trans person, any sex worker, anybody, every time you go to court, you still have to pay a lawyer, and the lawyer does nothing. He doesn't know anything about you. He doesn't know your background. He doesn't understand why you are a sex worker, why you are a trans person. He's not able to understand where you come from.
The situation also has implications for the upholding of broader human rights.
A lot of the prejudice, a lot of the fallout is cross-cutting, regardless of the type of discrimination. People's dignity, people's sense of worth, people's access to justice, people's access to economic security and livelihood issues, where people's human rights are basically compromised. The losses are the same.
And what of the role of governments?
Each state should have a national plan where they have a national commission where they budget for the protection and promotion of the rights of particularly these marginalized groups. So in addition, because we need to put money into the protection of the rights of these people. They are fellow citizens, but even more important, they are fellow human beings.
It's become clear over the last 10 years, 12 years, that part of the barriers, some of the big barriers are legal and policy barriers that keep people vulnerable, keep them from accessing their rights, keep them from accessing healthcare equitably, and keep them free from stigma and discrimination from others.
But there have been some successes along the way.
I was part of a team that actually brought a constitutional case challenging the unnatural connection law as being unconstitutional. And in response to that challenge being brought, the Director of Public Prosecutions actually dropped the criminal charges. And the client at the time just wanted to move on with his life. He had no interest in really pursuing the constitutional case and being a test litigant or bringing a test case. So these kinds of cases have very real impact on people on the ground, very real impact in relation to people who face multiple grounds of oppression, including oppression from the law for historical reasons.
Public awareness is viewed as an important factor in addressing the challenges.
We talk, grandly about human rights and how important they are, constitutional protection and all of that. We often don't talk about the details. And it's everything, there's a saying that the devil is in the details. So it's the details, it's the real core understanding of human rights, which is really going to generate that momentum for systemic change.
Pro Bono legal services are a proven support.
It's often said that those to whom much has been given, much is expected. We are regarded as leaders, we set example. When we speak, people listen to us. So as attorneys, I think that we should, one, speak out on issues which have social interest. We should take on pro bono work for persons who cannot afford and persons who are deserving in the sense that they have a genuine need, or they're in need of help and they can't otherwise get assistance.
Above all, social justice lawyering calls for a united effort by everyone.
Because we're Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition, we actually have a focus on engaging communities from different islands in networks, in groupings that allow us to be stronger together, that allow us to have united voices, speaking in spaces that are powerful and that need to change and need to acknowledge that they have to protect the rights of all their citizens.
But my freedom is way deeper than the fish that swims in that sea or the birds that fly high in the sky. So when you see me walking by as a proud black woman, you don't know the price I have had to pay for this type of freedom. I am free, free to be the woman God has meant for me to be, free.
You can get involved in this network for social justice lawyering by contacting CVC or URAP.